Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda, and today I'm going to be doing a review. I'm going to call it my review double feature. So I read a couple books in the month of September, so this is long past due, and I wanted to talk a little bit about each of them. So I'm going to try not to spoil anything or much, but I may, so I apologize if you are watching this and I do end up spoiling something. I'm sorry. So the first that I'm going to talk about is The Art of Hiding by Amanda Prowse. This is a women's fiction contemporary novel, and I gave this book 3 stars. I did enjoy it. However, I've said this before, I thought going into it it was a thriller, and it's not. It's a contemporary fiction. So I wasn't in the correct mindset. But this book follows our main character, Nina McCarrick, who is a mother and a wife. And the book starts out and her life is seemingly perfect. She lives in this huge house. Her kids go to this very nice prep school. The book is set in the UK. And she has this pretty perfect life. You do notice right off the bat that Nina doesn't have any friends, and she's kind of awkward around the other mothers, and she doesn't want to socialize with them, and she feels safer in her home with her husband and kids. So that was a little strange for me. I didn't really understand what was going on. I thought maybe she had anxiety. But other than that, everything seemed pretty picture perfect. And then something happens, and Nina is left to figure out how to provide for her family. And she doesn't know how to do that because since she was 19 years old, she's married to this very wealthy man who has promised to always take care of her and her family, and now something has happened. He can no longer do that. So Nina, you know, her whole world gets flipped upside down, and she's left to figure things out on her own, and she just does not have, she has no idea how to do that. But she's a mother, and I think, you know, I'm not a mother myself, but I feel like mothers or women, when they're backed into a corner, they tend to figure things out one way or the other. Doesn't mean it's not hard. I can't imagine having 2 young kids going through what she's gone through. I mean, she doesn't have an education. She's pretty like left to dry, you know, left out to dry. And so it's a story of perseverance and overcoming the odds, and it's very empowering to read, because I feel like a lot of women have maybe been in this situation or are currently in this situation trying to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and so it could be inspiring, I think. So anyways, we fast forward, and Nina is trying to get her life back together. She has a very estranged relationship with her sister, but she does end up reaching out to her because she has no one left. Like I said before, she didn't have any relationships with any of the other mothers. You know, she kind of distanced herself from everyone. And so, you know, little by little, she starts to put her life together. And at first, her children just don't understand. I mean, all they've known is that everything that they've ever wanted has been at their fingertips. And now they have to uproot their whole life and move somewhere else that's not as good, not even close. It's something they don't even know, they don't even recognize. And, you know, one of her sons is 15, and the other, I think, is 8. So the younger boy, he does understand, or he's a little bit more understanding because he's young, and, you know, he just wants to see his mother happy. But you have a teenage boy whose life was just uprooted, and he can be a little nasty to his mom sometimes, so that makes things a little bit harder for her. But one day she just has an epiphany, and she's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And, you know, she keeps trudging through. And I just think, you know, it took me a little while to get into it, but once I was into it, I really admired Nina for figuring things out and for being so strong, because I don't know if I could have been as strong as she was. So yeah, I gave that one 3 out of 5 stars. I do recommend that you pick it up if you do like adult contemporary fiction, adult fiction, and yeah, it was pretty good. So thanks to Netgalley for that. And then the next book I want to talk about is Lies She Told by Cate Holahan. This is a thriller, and I loved this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because I did get a little confused. Sometimes the writing was a little confusing because the stories, they overlap so much that I found myself like having to go back and like reread. Other than that, I absolutely loved it. So this follows our main character Liza, who is an author, and she writes psychological thrillers. And so it talks about, like, it goes into her life and what she's going through. She's trying to write like her next big novel. She had one like breakout novel, and then the subsequent novels afterwards haven't been as good, so she's kind of like on the bottom of her editor's list, and you know, she's really trying to like write this next thriller that's really gonna put her back on top again. So you get her perspective, and then you also get the perspective of the novel that she's writing. So in her life, in Liza's life, she is trying to become pregnant, her and her husband, and they've been struggling with fertility for quite some time. And so she's going to see a fertility doctor. She gets hormone injections. She has like something underneath her skin, I think, that produces hormones for her. And so they're trying, but they're also struggling in their marriage because the husband's best friend has gone missing, and she's not being as supportive as she should be, or that he thinks that she should be, and he's, you know, kind of giving up on her and the thought of the baby. He's not giving her what she needs, and so she struggles with that throughout the whole book. But then also you get this perspective of her actual book, and her book follows her main character Beth and her husband. So Beth and her husband struggled with fertility, but they finally had the baby, and things are seemingly great. But in the first scene of her book, you see that Beth is out for a walk with the baby and sees her husband at dinner with a detective that he worked with on a case. So it's funny because like the husband in the story, the fictional story that's being written, is a lawyer, and the husband in Liza's life, her husband, isn't a lawyer too. So do you see how those things cross over with the babies and the infertility, and like that's where I started to get like a little confused. So we have the fictional character Beth, who sees her husband cheating, and then she kind of goes off the rails a little bit, and her husband mistakes her her anger and her emotions about the cheating to postpartum depression. And he says like, "You're so tired, you never sleep, like what's wrong with you?" He comes home and she's really upset, and he just assumes that it's postpartum depression, which is kind of frustrating. But he sends her to see a therapist. So she goes and sees this therapist. She tells the therapist what's going on. She gets some kind of bond with the therapist. Things ensue from there. And then in Liza's life, they're still trying to figure out what happened to her husband's business partner or best friend, and they can't, and she keeps losing time. So you're just trying to piece everything together. She has a best friend who I absolutely adored. She was great, and it reminded me so much of my own best friend. And just things start to happen and start to snowball, and then you have to differentiate between Liza, who is what the book is about, who the book is about, and then Liza's book, and those things get crossed over quite a bit. I think the therapist's name is close to the name of her editor, of Liza's editor. So I think those things get a little confused. So you really have to pay attention, but I mean, it kept me going the entire time. Like, I just wanted to find out what was happening. I just could not put it down. So it goes back and forth between those things. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I will tell you that you guys definitely need to pick it up, because I just can't rave about it anymore. Like, it was just what I needed. I read The Perfect Girl by Jilly McMillan, and it was not, I didn't care for it. So this was like the next thriller I picked up after that, and like it was exactly what I needed. So I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. I absolutely enjoyed it. I will have full reviews up on Goodreads. If you guys want to go check those out, once I have them up, I will link them down below. Thank you to Netgalley for both of those books. I hope you guys go and check them out. I will link the Goodreads page for both of the books if you are interested. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will talk to y'all later.